Welcome to Know Your Money. I'm your host, Bronwyn Wayner. With me is Craig Finch, my business partner from Growth Financial Planning. Joining us today and every day is our sound engineer, Warren Grimsley. In our podcast, we will explore our relationship with money and how the psychology of it impacts our financial decisions, as everyone thinks about money differently. We will be presenting a variety of financial topics in an easy-to-understand way, which we hope will assist you in managing your money. Welcome to Know Your Money, everybody. In today's episode, we are talking about buckets and boundaries versus budgets. Craig, Warren, how are you guys today?
Hi, Bron. All good. And Warren, how are you doing?
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. How are you guys?
Very good, thank you. So over the last few months that we've been recording things, we have been chatting about budgets and people having a budget, and then the envelopes and people kind of creating buckets, and putting boundaries in place. One of the biggest things that we've also said when we were trying to record is some people don't even like the word budget. You know, they don't want to look at it, they don't want to think about it. I think a budget is like serious accountability, and you've got to sit down and really look at what you're doing. So that some people can do, other people can't. The other side of it is the buckets and the boundaries. And I think if people can learn what that is and rather start there than looking at your budget if you feel a bit scared. So a bucket is basically putting those money envelopes on the side, and the boundary is putting boundaries in place if you need them. What do you think?
What do you mean by boundaries? What, with regards to your spending or?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like, so the weekly budget, giving yourself a certain amount that you can spend per week, put that boundary in place. So if you can start with a boundary and an envelope, you might find it a bit easier to save. So
the envelope will automatically be a boundary.
Envelope is more the bucket.
Yeah,
do you know
so
what I mean?
You put your money in that bucket for the month, that's, say, clothing or going out or holiday money, petrol money, etc. But if you open that bucket and there's no money for clothes because you spent it already, you can't dip into the holiday budget. So
Absolutely.
that's a forced boundary anyway.
Exactly. So that's it. So those two things are seen together. Buckets and boundaries help you versus actually budgeting and going and looking and trying to see things. And, you know, when something comes up, just put that in place and try and work from it.
So I think a budget, what often happens, you've got that spreadsheet and then you do it after the fact, and that's always a problem. So you go, oh, my word, look what happened there. Whereas if you've got that boundary, that bucket in place, that envelope in place, you're not going to just dip in there. But if you've got the budget and the spreadsheet, you might have spent so much on clothing, and then you have a shock when you eventually, a week after the month end, you go and update your spreadsheet, you see, my word, I shouldn't have spent it, I didn't realize what was happening.
You know, for me, I mean, there's the psychology of it, you know. If you set a boundary with something and you keep to it, it's much more endearing for me to do something like that than to say, rather saying to myself, don't do that, put the money away. Once it's away, you can't touch it. That's as simple as that. It's like saving, but the same thing with your bucket or envelope. So that money's only for clothes. We're only going to use that for clothes. Versus trying to budget and then go, oh, okay, now I feel bad because I have to look at where I shouldn't have spent money during the week.
Exactly.
So it's almost like a psychology thing.
Absolutely. And that's a thing that, you know, in other episodes we were saying, like, you should budget and you should really look at it once a week. And for some people, that's not easy to do. For some people to actually even look at a budget is not easy. But what is easier is if you put a boundary in place or a bucket in place, you can immediately become accountable for that.
And some of the banks allow you to have sub-accounts.
Yes.
So you can, I don't know if there's a limit on how many sub-accounts you can have, but you can label those clothing, holidays, petrol, family, going out, etc. And you can, when you get your money at the end of the month, when you get paid, you allocate that money to those different sub-accounts.
Absolutely.
And make sure you only use those sub-accounts for the purpose it's intended for.
Exactly. And also what I found so helpful is, So I have sub accounts, and then the other day a yearly subscription went off. So it took away from our weekly budget. And then I was like, oh my word, there's like 1,000 Rand gone. But then I thought, okay, we'll just open a new bucket, open a subscription bucket and put 100 Rand a month in there. So the next time it takes from that weekly budget, you just top up from that other bucket into your normal spend. And that's the thing is people are like, I can't save, I can't do this because expenses always come up. If you stop being aware of what it is, like your car breaking down or this, then you just open a repairs one and put in a little amount and just, I just found it quite helpful.
Yeah, like the emergency fund. You know what's really interesting is, so recently my wife allowed me to take control of the finances, well, hers at least, because it's been a long time coming. She'll get to the third week of the month and run out of money. And, that would stress her out so much.
Absolutely.
But she couldn't help herself but to just buy stuff.
And the thought of having to go back and look at what she spent on those 3 weeks, it's too much of a block.
Yeah. So what actually has worked out really well is now, as horrible as it sounds, I give her a weekly budget. So I go, here's your money for the week. If you need more, ask me. But then you actually have to really think about why you need more.
Yeah.
And as a result, she feels great about her money now. So
exactly.
It's a positive reinforcement by setting these boundaries.
Exactly. And it's almost like parenting. So you're basically just parenting yourself. Budgeting is like punishment and what did you do wrong and how did you do this? The boundaries and the buckets are like, okay, let's put this so that you don't do those things. And look at what you're saying now about your wife and her feelings. And that's
it
more
sets her
of
up to be proud of herself for achieving something rather than be angry with herself for not.
Exactly.
And those annual amounts that you have to pay, sometimes they subscriptions to sports clubs, golf clubs.
Yeah.
And a golf club, it can be very expensive and you have this shock at the end of the year, my word.
Yeah.
But I've been doing that for the last few years, putting money away every month. So when the time comes to pay your subscriptions, it's such an easy transaction.
Yes.
You feel great about yourself. You don't go into a big month where you haven't got money for the next month, that you've got that money set aside and it's ring fenced for that.
Exactly, and just makes everything work out properly, and gifts at the end of the year or kids' new school clothes or all of these big things. As soon as something comes up and it gives you the shock like, oh, where am I going to find that money from? That is an indication for you to just let that be and for the following month start that new bucket.
Yeah, especially school, that's a very, very good one. And also gifts, because they do come up at the wrong time.
Yeah, and birthday gifts throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really does.
Yeah, I don't have many friends, so I don't have that problem.
Awesome stuff, guys. Yeah, so I think the main take homes of this is don't be so hard on yourself if you don't want to budget. Rather try first looking at putting a bucket or a boundary in place and changing your relationship with money. Thanks so much, guys.
Brian, thank you very much. Great episode and very good ideas there.
Well done, everyone.
See you, Warren. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe or visit our website, www.growthfp.co.za. The information we have provided in this podcast is our personal opinion. For more detailed information, please discuss your financial situation with a financial planner.